My name is Margaret. I'm 62 years old, and for the last 40 years, I poured my heart, my sweat, and my entire life into a bakery that became the pride of my little town. People knew me as the bread lady, the one who remembered every customer's name, every favorite order, every birthday cake. But behind all the flour and sugar, my own life was crumbling, because my husband, Julian, wasn't just a liar. He was a cheater. And the woman he betrayed me with? My own daughter-in-law, Alison. And when I tell you how I caught them, how I glued them together, literally, and how my son, a fire chief, was the one to discover them, you'll understand why I call this the stickiest revenge in history. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your whole heart, hit that like button right now. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just about cheating, it's about humiliation, karma, and the sweetest justice you can imagine. Let's begin. I wasn't born with much. My parents were factory workers, and I started out cleaning tables at a cafe when I was 15. But I had a gift. I could bake like nobody's business. By the time I was 22, I had saved enough to open a tiny little bakery. Just 4 walls, 1 oven, and a bell over the door that jingled every time someone walked in. That bakery became my entire life. I worked before the sun rose and didn't leave until after dark. I built a reputation, then a business, then a legacy. 40 years I gave that shop. Every loaf of bread, every pie, every frosted cookie, it was a piece of me. And I thought Julian, my husband of 40 years, was with me every step. He wasn't the baker, that was my passion. But he was the one who helped with deliveries, the one who stood by the register when I was elbow deep in dough. At least, that's what I thought. Julian had always been charming. A tall man with sharp blue eyes and a smile that could make people forgive him for anything. When I was younger, that smile was my safe place. As the years went on, it became something else. Something slippery. Something I couldn't hold on to anymore. And maybe you're wondering, how does a woman not notice her husband is betraying her right under her nose? Trust me, I asked myself that 1,000 times. But the truth is, betrayal doesn't come crashing into your life. It seeps in. Slowly. Silently. Like poison in a glass of water. The family I trusted, we raised 1 son together, Michael. He grew up in that bakery, learning how to knead dough before he could even spell the word bread. He didn't want to follow in my flour-dusted footsteps, though. No, Michael wanted something different. Something brave. He became a fireman. By the time this story begins, he was the fire chief of our town. My pride and joy. My protector. And when he brought home his wife, Alison, I thought, finally, my family is complete. Alison was young, maybe too young. She was 26 when they married, a good 15 years younger than Michael. She had this laugh that filled the room, this energy that reminded me of the girl I used to be. At first, I loved her. I welcomed her into my home, my kitchen, my heart. But I should have known. I should have seen the way Julian looked at her. First signs of cracks, it started with little things. I'd find Julian lingering too long when Alison was around, his hand brushing hers as if by accident. Once, I caught them laughing in the kitchen about some inside joke, their heads bent too close together. My stomach tightened, but I brushed it off. Don't be paranoid, Margaret, I told myself. She's your daughter-in-law. He's just being friendly. But the signs piled up. Alison began showing up at the bakery when Michael was at work. She'd bring Julian coffee, sit with him at the front while I baked in the back. Once, I came out and saw her touching his wrist. Just a light touch, but enough to make my blood run cold. When I confronted Julian, he brushed me off. You're imagining things, he said. She's young. She sees me as a father figure. Don't be jealous. Jealous. That word stung more than any slap could. But jealousy wasn't what I felt. No, what I felt was something much darker. A gnawing dread that the 2 people I trusted most in my life were weaving a secret behind my back. And soon, I'd discover I wasn't wrong. The truth came to me on a rainy Thursday. I was cleaning the bakery, getting ready to close, when Julian's phone buzzed on the counter. He'd gone to the restroom, and normally I never snooped. 40 years together, I trusted him. But something in me, some whisper, Some instinct told me to look. And there it was. A message from Allison. Can't wait for tonight. Same place. Same time. Bring the wine. This time my knees went weak. My chest tightened so much I thought I might actually collapse on the bakery floor. I scrolled, my hands shaking. Message after message. Weeks. Months. Photos. Words that burned into my eyes. They weren't just cheating. They were mocking me. She has no idea, one of Allison's texts read. She's too busy with her flower to notice, Julian replied. And then the final dagger, plans to take the bakery from me. To convince Margaret to retire, as they put it. Julian even joked about how, once I was gone, he and Allison could run it together. My life's work. My 40 years. Stolen by my husband and my son's wife. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the phone into pieces. But instead, I put it back exactly where I found it. And I smiled when Julian came out of the restroom. Because in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. No, this wasn't a story where the wife cries and begs. This was going to be a story where the wife gets revenge. And oh, it was going to be sticky. The night I read those messages, I barely slept. I lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Julian's soft snores beside me. That same man who had held me in the delivery room when Michael was born, who had shared holidays and anniversaries with me, was now plotting my humiliation. I thought about waking him up, screaming in his face, throwing the phone at him and demanding answers. But then, I thought about something else. The bakery had taught me patience. Dough doesn't rise in seconds. Yeast needs time. And revenge. Well, revenge needs to be baked slowly, carefully, until it's golden brown and irresistible. So instead of shaking him awake, I lay in silence, my mind racing, planning. And here's where most stories end, with a woman broken, her heart shattered. But not mine. Because instead of letting Julian destroy me, I decided to destroy him. Piece by piece. And the way I did it. Let's just say, he never saw it coming. The next morning, I went to the bakery early, before dawn. The smell of yeast and sugar hit me like it always did, grounding me. This place had been my anchor for 4 decades. I wasn't about to let anyone steal it, not Julian, not Allison, not anyone. I sat at the counter with a notebook and a cup of coffee. And I wrote down one word in capital letters, revenge. Beneath it, I started listing ideas. Confrontation? Too boring. Divorce? Too quiet. Exposure? Maybe, but I wanted something bigger. Something unforgettable. Something that would make the entire town gasp. And then it came to me. A memory from years ago, when I accidentally grabbed the wrong tube at the hardware store. Julian had been fixing something in the bakery kitchen, and instead of cork, I handed him industrial-strength superglue. He'd gotten some on his fingers, and we laughed for hours at how he couldn't get them apart. Back then, it was funny. Innocent. Now, it was going to be my weapon. Once the idea took root, I couldn't let it go. The image of Julian and Allison caught in the act, literally stuck together, burned in my mind. Humiliation wasn't enough. No, I wanted devastation. I wanted him to feel powerless, stripped bare, exposed. Step 1 was preparation. I went to the hardware store 2 towns over, somewhere no one would recognize me, and bought a few tubes of that same industrial glue. The cashier asked what I was fixing. I smiled and said, just patching up an old chair. If only she knew. Next, I had to figure out how to catch them at the right time. Allison's text messages gave me all the clues I needed. They always met when I was supposed to be out of town for catering events. Lucky for me, I had one coming up. Or at least, I pretended I did. I told Julian I'd be gone for a few days delivering custom cakes for a wedding. He didn't even question it. He probably thought it was his golden opportunity. That smugness was going to be his downfall. Have you ever noticed how cheaters get comfortable? They think they're smarter than you. They think they're untouchable. But the truth is, they're only as smart as the trap you set for them. The night before my trip, I packed a fake suitcase, just a few clothes and toiletries. I even left the receipt for a hotel reservation on the kitchen counter where Julian could find it. He saw it, glanced at me, and smirked. "Be safe," he said, kissing me on the cheek like everything was normal. Inside, I wanted to spit in his face. But outside, I smiled sweetly and said, "Don't wait up." The moment I left, I circled back and parked down the street, hidden where I could see our house. Sure enough, not even 30 minutes later, Allison's car pulled into the driveway. She had a bottle of wine in her hand and that sly smile I'd once mistaken for innocence. They disappeared inside. My trap was ready. Here's where the bakery lessons came in handy again: precision. Timing mattered. Ingredients mattered. Earlier that week, I'd replaced Julian's personal lubricant with industrial-strength glue. Same packaging. Same look. No way he'd notice until it was too late. But that was just half the fun. I needed a guarantee they wouldn't be able to cover up their little scandal quietly. That's when I installed my smoke trap. In the bakery, I sometimes used dry ice and glycerin to make decorative fog for cakes. With a little tinkering, I figured out how to rig a small device near the kitchen stove that, on a timer, would release a thick, smoky cloud enough to trigger the fire alarm. If all went according to plan, the neighbors would panic and call the fire department. And who was the fire chief? My son, Michael. Imagine that. My cheating husband, glued to his mistress, caught red-handed not by me, but by our son. Now that's what I call poetic justice. Once everything was set, I parked in my hidden spot and waited. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might shake the car. Hours passed. I could only imagine what was happening inside. The betrayal, the lies, the whispers. But I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt alive. For the first time in months, maybe years, I was in control. At 11:30 p.m., the timer on my little device ticked over. A plume of white smoke began to fill the kitchen, curling out of the windows. Within minutes, the shrill scream of the fire alarm pierced the night air. Lights flipped on in the neighbors' houses. I heard doors opening, voices shouting. And then, the wail of sirens in the distance. My son was coming. And here's the thing about revenge: it's not just about the act itself. It's about the moment before, that sweet stretch of time when you know what's about to happen, and your enemy has no idea. I gripped the steering wheel, barely able to contain my anticipation. Any second now, the world was going to watch Julian's lies go up in flames, or at least in smoke. I thought about all the years he'd stolen from me. The trust he shattered. The family he betrayed. And I smiled. Because tonight, karma wasn't just coming for him. It was being delivered by his own wife. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the night like a warning bell of justice. My stomach flipped, not with fear, but with excitement. I'd baked this plan carefully, let it rise at just the right temperature, and now it was ready to be served. Within minutes, the fire truck screeched to a halt outside my home. Neighbors gathered in their pajamas, clutching their phones, whispering to each other. They could see the smoke billowing from the windows. And then I saw him, my son, Michael. My boy jumped down from the truck, pulling on his gear, barking orders like the natural leader he was. My heart swelled with pride and dread all at once. He was about to see the truth, to see his father's betrayal with his own eyes. I wanted Julian exposed. I wanted him humiliated. But I also knew this was going to break my son's heart. And that was the one piece of this plan I wasn't sure I'd survive. Michael ran toward the house, shouting for his crew to grab the axes. In seconds, they smashed through the front door. The alarm was screaming. Smoke poured out. The crowd held their breath. And then, silence. For a long, heavy moment, nothing happened. My chest tightened. What if they found a way to cover themselves? What if the glue didn't work? But then I heard it. A shout. And laughter. Not the good kind of laughter, the kind that spreads through a crowd when something so absurd, so shocking, happens that nobody can hold it in. 2 firefighters staggered out of my house, their faces red from stifling chuckles. And then came Michael, his expression twisted in disbelief. Behind him, carried out on a stretcher, were Julian and Allison. Naked. Stuck together. The crowd gasped. Someone screamed. Someone else yelled, "Oh my God." And then came the phones. Dozens of phones. Recording. Snapping pictures. Broadcasting to the entire neighborhood, and soon, the entire internet. If humiliation is a dish best served cold, then this was an ice-cold sundae with a cherry on top. My cheating husband, my treacherous daughter-in-law, glued together for the world to see. But it wasn't the laughter or the gasps that cut deepest, it was Michael's face. My son, the man who'd trusted his father, who'd trusted his wife, looked shattered. His jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might break. His eyes burned, not just with betrayal, but with shame. And yet, I saw something else in his eyes too, relief. Relief that the truth was undeniable. That he wasn't crazy. That his gut instincts about Allison's lies had been right all along. He didn't say a word as his crew loaded Julian and Allison into the ambulance. He just turned to the crowd and muttered, "Nothing to see here. Go home." But there was everything to see. The scandal spread like wildfire. By the next morning, photos were everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My husband and daughter-in-law were a meme. People joked about them being inseparable, about forbidden love gone wrong, about superglued karma. The local news even ran a segment. My bakery was swamped with curious customers, all whispering about the scandal while buying cupcakes. Business boomed. Julian, on the other hand, couldn't show his face. The hospital staff leaked stories about how they tried to separate him and Allison. And when they finally managed it, I had one more little trick up my sleeve. I swapped their recovery ointment with mustard. Instead of soothing, cooling relief, they got burning, stinging pain. The screams could be heard down the hall. Petty. Absolutely. Worth it. Every second. And you might be thinking, wasn't the public humiliation enough? Maybe. But when someone tries to steal 40 years of your life, a little extra sting feels just right. The day Julian came home from the hospital, I was waiting for him at the kitchen table. A neat stack of papers lay in front of me. Divorce papers. He looked at me, his eyes hollow, his face gaunt. For once, the charming smile was gone. He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. "Don't bother," I said. "Just sign them." He did. Without protest. Because what else could he do? His reputation was ruined. His son hated him. His lover was outed. He had nothing left. I, on the other hand, had everything. Michael filed for divorce from Allison almost immediately. The betrayal cut deep, but he didn't let it destroy him. Instead, he came to me. "Mom," he said, his voice raw, "I want to help with the bakery. I can't keep doing the firehouse after everything. Not right now." So we rebuilt together. Every morning, he'd come in early, tie on an apron, and throw himself into the work. He wasn't a natural baker, but he tried. And that effort healed something in me. The bakery wasn't just my legacy anymore, it was ours. Sometimes, revenge isn't just about tearing someone down. Sometimes, it's about what rises in the ashes. And for me, that was my bond with my son, stronger, closer, unbreakable. The town rallied around us. Customers supported us more than ever. My little shop became a symbol of resilience, of karma served hot and fresh every morning. Julian. Last I heard, he moved 3 towns over, working odd jobs. Allison disappeared too. Rumors say she left the state, humiliated, broke, forgotten. And me. I wake up every day, tie on my apron, and smile. Because I didn't just survive betrayal. I conquered it. Asterisk, if you're listening to this and you've ever been betrayed, I want you to remember something. You are not powerless. You are not weak. And you don't have to settle for heartbreak. Sometimes justice doesn't come on its own. Sometimes, you have to bake it yourself. And when it's ready, oh, it's sweeter than any cake I've ever made. Asterisk, if this story gave you chills, or maybe even a laugh, smash that like button right now. Tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? And don't forget subscribe, because I have plenty more stories that prove one simple truth. Karma always comes, and sometimes, it comes with superglue.